What if history's greatest cities were never truly lost, only forgotten? Entire kingdoms once stood where empty fields lie today. Magnificent harbors welcomed ships from 3 continents. Kings climbed sacred mountains carved from solid rock. Hidden temples overlooked ancient empires. And beneath quiet forests, deserts, and ordinary farmland, entire civilizations are still waiting to be uncovered. Places that shaped the ancient world before slowly disappearing beneath sand, soil, and centuries of silence. Tonight, we'll travel across Egypt, Türkiye, Cyprus, Sweden, Serbia, Eritrea, Spain, and beyond to explore forgotten cities, sacred mountains, hidden temples, lost harbors, and remarkable archaeological discoveries that continue to challenge what we know about the past. But before we begin, take a moment to subscribe. And as always, if you subscribe before we start, you might just receive 7 years of good luck. At the very least, you'll never miss another journey into history's greatest, the grave where a woman was buried with a full set of surgical tools. Some of history's greatest discoveries begin with a single grave. No towering monument, no golden treasure, no forgotten palace, just a quiet burial, hidden beneath the earth for thousands of years. When archaeologists carefully uncovered this ancient tomb, they expected to find another ordinary Bronze Age burial. Instead, they found something no one had anticipated: a woman, laid to rest with an entire collection of surgical instruments beside her. Delicate bronze blades, fine needles, small knives, precision tools, not symbols of wealth, tools of a profession. The discovery challenged one of archaeology's oldest assumptions. Could one of the world's earliest known surgeons have been a woman? The remarkable burial was uncovered at the ancient site of Nahalhamar? No. At Pamet, near present-day Bale Herculane in Romania, archaeologists excavated a Bronze Age cemetery dating to nearly 4,000 years ago, where one particular grave immediately stood apart from all the others. The woman had been buried with exceptional care. Her body rested peacefully. The grave was modest. Yet the objects placed beside her were extraordinary. Nothing about them suggested ordinary household life. Everything pointed towards specialized knowledge. Carefully arranged beside the skeleton were several finely crafted bronze instruments, unlike the knives or farming tools commonly found in Bronze Age burials. There were slender blades, sharp awls, small curved implements, delicate probes. Each showed signs of careful manufacture. Each appeared designed for precision rather than force. The collection immediately attracted the attention of archaeologists and medical historians. At first, researchers wondered whether the tools belonged to someone else. Perhaps they had been ceremonial offerings. Perhaps they represented a family's wealth. But the more closely the burial was studied, the less convincing those explanations became. The instruments formed a complete working set, not random objects, not decorative items, a carefully selected toolkit, almost exactly what one might expect from someone who practiced early medicine. The discovery became even more intriguing when specialists compared the bronze instruments with medical tools depicted in later civilizations across Egypt, Greece, and Rome. Although separated by many centuries, several shared remarkably similar shapes and practical designs. Simple, functional, made for careful hands. The similarities suggested that basic surgical techniques may have deeper roots than historians once believed. Knowledge rarely appears overnight. It grows slowly, across generations. What kinds of procedures might these tools have been used for? No one knows with certainty. Some researchers believe they were intended for treating wounds, draining infections, removing damaged tissue, or assisting with childbirth. Others suggest they may have been used in ritual healing rather than surgery alone. In the Bronze Age, medicine and spirituality were often closely connected. The healer may have served both roles: physician, priest, caretaker. The woman's identity remains unknown. No inscription records her name. No written history remembers her life. Yet the grave speaks quietly on her behalf. Someone believed her work mattered enough to accompany her into death. Someone carefully placed every instrument beside her. Nothing appears accidental. The burial reflects respect, perhaps admiration, certainly intention. The discovery has also encouraged archaeologists to reconsider long-held assumptions about gender roles in ancient societies. For many years, elaborate toolkits discovered in graves were often assumed to belong to men unless clear evidence suggested otherwise. This burial challenged that expectation. Here was a woman, surrounded by instruments requiring remarkable skill. Perhaps expertise mattered more than gender. Perhaps ancient societies were more complex than we often imagine. The evidence invites humility, not certainty. Bronze itself was a valuable material. Creating these instruments demanded experienced metalworkers capable of casting, shaping, and sharpening each piece with exceptional care. They were not disposable tools. They represented investment, knowledge, craftsmanship. Every blade reflected both technical ability and practical experience. Someone expected them to be used, again and again. Today, the burial continues to attract historians interested in the earliest history of medicine. Each new study asks the same quiet questions. Who trained this woman? How widespread was her knowledge? Were there others like her whose graves simply have not survived? Wood decays. Leather disappears. Knowledge often leaves few traces behind. Perhaps this remarkable burial is only one surviving chapter of a much larger story. More than 3,000 years have passed since the woman was laid to rest. The patients she treated are forgotten. The illnesses she faced have vanished into history. Her name has been lost. Yet the tools remain, still resting beside her, still telling a story without words, a story of skill, of compassion, of knowledge passed from one generation to the next. The grave remains silent. The instruments continue to speak. And perhaps they remind us that some of history's greatest pioneers were never mentioned in ancient texts. They simply waited beneath the earth for someone to uncover their story once again. The fortress uncovered when a reservoir dried up completely. For decades, it lay hidden beneath dark water. Invisible. Forgotten. Its stones rested quietly beneath the surface while boats passed overhead, unaware that an ancient monument waited below. Then the water began to disappear. Not because of an archaeological excavation, not because of a planned discovery, but because of an extraordinary drought. As the reservoir slowly retreated, massive stones emerged from the mud, circle after circle, stone after stone. A monument no one had seen for generations. Many called it the Spanish Stonehenge. Its true name is the Dolmen of Guadalperol, and its return raised as many questions as answers. The monument stands in western Spain, in the Extremadura region, where the Tagus River once flowed freely through a fertile valley long before a modern reservoir covered the landscape during the 20th century. The valley held villages, ancient paths, farmland, and monuments whose history stretched back thousands of years. Most disappeared beneath the rising water. The dolmen disappeared with them, almost completely. The structure was first documented in the 1920s by the German archaeologist Hugo Obermeier, who carefully studied the ancient monument before plans for the Valdecañas Reservoir permanently transformed the surrounding landscape. His work preserved valuable records, photographs, measurements, drawings. Without them, much of the monument's history might have vanished forever. Soon afterward, the valley flooded. The stones disappeared beneath the reservoir. History slipped underwater. For more than 50 years, only divers occasionally caught glimpses of the monument beneath the surface. The granite pillars endured. Fish swam between them. Mud slowly covered their bases. The reservoir became their new landscape. Few expected they would ever fully reappear. Yet nature had other plans. During periods of exceptional drought, water levels dropped dramatically across Spain. As the shoreline retreated farther than anyone expected, dozens of upright granite stones slowly emerged from the drying lake bed. One by one, the ancient circle returned. The sight was extraordinary. Not reconstructed, not recreated, simply revealed, as though time itself had briefly reversed. Archaeologists believe the Dolmen of Guadalperol was constructed nearly 5,000 years ago during the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age, making it significantly older than the Roman cities and medieval castles that later surrounded the region. Its builders left no written language, no recorded history, only stone, carefully arranged, still standing. The monument originally consisted of more than 100 granite slabs forming a long stone passage leading toward a central burial chamber, where communities likely conducted funerary ceremonies and other rituals connected with remembrance, ancestry, and the changing seasons. It was never simply a tomb. It was a gathering place, a place of memory, perhaps even of pilgrimage. One remarkable feature continues to fascinate researchers. Several stones bear ancient carvings, including a winding serpentine pattern that some archaeologists interpret as representing the nearby Tagus River. Others believe it symbolizes a sacred path, or perhaps something entirely different. Its meaning remains uncertain. The stone offers no explanation, only the carving, only silence. Another mystery concerns the monument's original landscape. Today it appears isolated within the reservoir, but 5,000 years ago, the surrounding valley looked completely different. Forests covered the hills. The river followed another course. Communities farmed nearby. The monument stood within a living landscape, not beneath a lake. The world around it has changed more than the monument itself. The monument's unexpected reappearance also created a difficult challenge. Exposure allows archaeologists to study the stones once again, but repeated flooding and drying gradually damage the ancient granite. Some researchers argue the monument should be relocated for protection. Others believe it should remain exactly where its builders placed it. The debate continues. Preservation or authenticity? Neither choice is simple. Standing among the stones today feels strangely unreal. The cracked lakebed stretches toward the horizon. Watermarks remain visible on the granite. Birdsong replaces the sound of waves. The monument seems suspended between two worlds, not fully lost, not fully recovered, waiting for rain, waiting for another drought, waiting for whatever comes next. Perhaps that is what makes the dolmen of Guadalperol so unforgettable. It was hidden, then revealed, only because nature briefly uncovered what modern history had submerged. The ancient builders could never have imagined a reservoir, or a drought, or archaeologists returning thousands of years later. Yet the stones endured, patiently, quietly, still watching the valley they have known since prehistory, and reminding us that some of history's greatest discoveries are not found by digging into the earth. Sometimes they simply emerge when the water finally lets them go. The cave where a single bone flute rewrote a timeline. Deep inside a quiet cave in the mountains of Slovenia, archaeologists uncovered a small piece of bone no longer than a human hand. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, broken, weathered, forgotly discarded by time. Then they noticed something extraordinary. A row of carefully spaced holes, perfectly placed, too deliberate to ignore. If they had been made by human hands, this tiny object would become one of the oldest known musical instruments ever discovered, and it would change one of archaeology's biggest assumptions. Not about music, but about who first created it. The remarkable discovery came from Divj Babe Cave, a prehistoric site overlooking the Eritrea River in western Slovenia, where decades of excavation have uncovered evidence of repeated occupation by Neanderthals during the Middle Paleolithic, long before modern humans reached much of Europe. The cave offered shelter, warmth, protection. Generation after generation returned here, leaving behind quiet traces of their lives. In 1995, archaeologists uncovered the fragmented thigh bone of a young cave bear resting among layers of ancient sediment dated to roughly 50,000 years ago. The bone itself was not unusual. Thousands of animal bones had already been recovered. But this one carried something different. Several carefully positioned holes. Their spacing appeared intentional, almost musical. The discovery immediately sparked debate, one that continues today. Researchers noticed that the openings resembled the finger holes found on simple flutes used throughout history. When replicas were constructed, musicians discovered they could produce recognizable musical notes, not random sounds, not whistles, a scale, simple, but unmistakably musical. If genuine, the instrument would predate all other known flutes by many thousands of years, rewriting the history of music itself. The implications were remarkable. Around 50,000 years ago, Europe was still largely inhabited by Neanderthals. Modern humans had either not yet arrived or had only begun appearing in small numbers. If Neanderthals carved the flute, they were capable of symbolic thought, artistic expression, and perhaps even music, qualities once believed unique to our own species. The discovery challenged old assumptions, quietly, powerfully. Yet not everyone agrees. Some archaeologists argue the holes were never carved by human hands at all. Instead, they suggest the bone was damaged naturally after death by the powerful teeth of carnivorous animals, particularly hyenas, whose bite marks can sometimes create surprisingly regular punctures. Nature can imitate intention, sometimes convincingly. The debate remains open. Others remain unconvinced by the natural explanation. The spacing of the holes appears unusually regular. The edges show features that some researchers interpret as deliberate modification. Experimental replicas continue producing controlled musical notes remarkably similar to those expected from a primitive flute. Coincidence or craftsmanship? The evidence supports both discussions, not certainty. Divjay Babe Cave itself adds another layer to the mystery. Excavations have uncovered stone tools, fireplaces, animal remains, and evidence of repeated human occupation stretching across thousands of years. This was not a place visited once. It became part of everyday survival. Families likely gathered around fires here, prepared food, crafted tools, shared stories. Perhaps music joined them. No one knows for certain. Music leaves almost no trace in archaeology. Songs disappear the moment they are performed. Voices fade into silence. Wood decays. Leather rots. Only the rarest instruments survive. That is what makes this small bone so extraordinary. Whether flute or not, it preserves a question, one carried across 50,000 years, waiting patiently for modern ears. Scientists continue examining the artifact using microscopic analysis, experimental archaeology, and advanced imaging techniques, searching for tiny manufacturing marks that might finally reveal whether the openings were carved intentionally or created by natural processes. Every new study adds another piece, another possibility, another unanswered question. The bone refuses to settle the debate. It simply exists, quietly. Standing inside Divjay Babe Cave today, it is easy to imagine the silence that once filled these chambers. The firelight, the echoes, the distant sounds of animals beyond the entrance. Then perhaps something else, a simple melody, soft notes carried through the darkness. Whether real or imagined, the possibility lingers. The cave keeps listening. More than 50,000 years have passed since this small fragment of bone came to rest beneath the cave floor. Its maker remains unknown. Its purpose remains debated. Its music, if it ever existed, has long since faded into silence. Yet the artifact continues to challenge everything we thought we knew about our distant past. Not because it provides easy answers, but because it asks an extraordinary question. What if the first music was older than history itself? And what if its earliest musician was someone we never expected? The cliffside sanctuary of Monte Ducati's forgotten neighbor. Hidden among the rolling hills of northern Sardinia, where limestone cliffs rise above quiet valleys, lies a place that almost disappeared from history. There are no towering temples, no massive stone circles, no famous monuments drawing crowds from around the world. Instead, an entire sanctuary was carved directly into the face of a cliff, doorways cut into solid rock, silent chambers disappearing into darkness, ancient paintings fading from the walls. For thousands of years, these hidden rooms have watched the changing seasons without saying a word. Today, this forgotten place is known as the necropolis of Sant Andrea Priu, one of the Mediterranean's most remarkable rock-cut sanctuaries, and one of its quietest mysteries. Long before the Romans arrived in Sardinia, prehistoric communities were already carving elaborate burial chambers into the island's soft limestone, creating what archaeologists call domus de Janus, or houses of the fairies, a name later generations gave to these mysterious underground tombs. The name sounds mythical. The chambers are very real, entire worlds, hidden beneath the rock. Among all these ancient sites, Sant Andrea Priu stands apart. Rather than containing only a handful of tombs, the necropolis includes more than 20 large chambers carved into a towering cliff, making it one of the largest prehistoric rock-cut cemeteries anywhere in Europe. The scale is astonishing. Every chamber required years of work, stone removed, wall by wall, room by room. The cliff slowly became architecture. Archaeologists believe the earliest tombs were created during the late Neolithic, nearly 5,000 years ago, by communities belonging to the Ozieri culture, one of prehistoric Sardinia's most sophisticated societies. They left no written language, no recorded kings, only stone, and extraordinary craftsmanship. The mountain became their monument. Walking through the chambers today reveals an unexpected level of complexity. Some contain multiple rooms. Others feature carved pillars supporting the ceilings. Stone benches line the walls. Doorways connect one chamber to another. Nothing feels crude. Everything appears carefully planned, almost like houses, built for eternity. One of the site's greatest mysteries is why so much effort was invested in creating underground spaces for the dead. Some archaeologists believe the tombs were designed to resemble the homes of the living, symbolizing a continued existence beyond death. Others suggest the chambers served as ceremonial gathering places where families honored their ancestors over many generations. Perhaps they fulfilled both roles. The evidence remains incomplete. The stone keeps its silence. Centuries later, the story of St. Andrea Priu took another remarkable turn. During the early Christian period, several of the prehistoric tombs were transformed into churches. Walls that once sheltered prehistoric burials became places of worship. Beautiful frescoes were painted across the ceilings. Crosses appeared beside much older carvings. Two distant worlds met inside the same stone chambers, separated by thousands of years, united by one sacred place. The largest chamber, often called the Tomb of the Chief, is especially impressive. Its spacious interior includes multiple interconnected rooms carved with remarkable precision, suggesting it belonged to someone of exceptional importance within the prehistoric community. Who that person was remains unknown. No inscription survives. No name endures. Only the monument. Waiting. Researchers continue debating how prehistoric builders achieved such accuracy using only simple stone and bone tools. The ceilings remain remarkably level. Corners are carefully aligned. Decorative features appear surprisingly symmetrical. Patience explains much. Skill explains the rest. The builders understood their craft, perhaps better than we realize. Modern excavations continue revealing pottery fragments, stone tools, human remains, and traces of ancient pigments that help reconstruct how these remarkable chambers were used across thousands of years. Each discovery adds another chapter, another family, another forgotten story. The necropolis still has more to reveal. Much remains buried. Standing beneath the towering limestone cliff today, the entrances almost disappear into the rock. From a distance, they seem like shadows. Only as you draw closer do the carved doorways emerge. The silence is profound. Cool air drifts from the chambers. The mountain feels alive. Not because it moves, because it remembers. Perhaps that is what makes St. Andrea Priu so extraordinary. It is not simply a cemetery, or a church, or an archaeological site. It is all of those things together. A place where one civilization carefully carved sacred spaces into stone, and another returned thousands of years later to find them sacred once again. The cliff still watches over the valley. The chambers remain open. The walls still guard their oldest secrets. Patiently, quietly, waiting for every visitor willing to step inside and listen to the silence left behind by 5,000 years of history. The mountain temple hidden above the clouds, deep within the ancient forests of Cambodia, hidden among towering trees and rising high above the royal city of Angkor, stands a temple that once could only be reached by climbing steep stone terraces toward the sky. No towering gateway greets its visitors. No giant faces watch from the walls. Its mystery lies somewhere quieter, higher, closer to the clouds. For centuries, kings climbed these steps believing they were ascending a sacred mountain where heaven and earth briefly met. Today, the temple still rises above the jungle. Silent, weathered, waiting. This is Phimionica's, one of Angkor's oldest royal sanctuaries, and one whose greatest story was never carved into stone. Long before Angkor Wat became the symbol of the Khmer Empire, Phimionica's stood at the heart of the royal palace complex, surrounded by wooden buildings that have long since disappeared, leaving only the temple itself to tell the story of the kingdom that once flourished around it. Palaces vanished, gardens faded, wood returned to the earth, only stone endured. The temple remained, watching over an empty city. Archaeologists believe Phimionica's was first constructed during the late 10th century before later rulers expanded and restored it, transforming the pyramid into one of the most important ceremonial structures inside the royal capital. Unlike many Khmer temples, it was not built for ordinary pilgrims. It stood inside the king's private world, hidden behind palace walls, reserved for royal ceremonies. The monument rises in 3 steep terraces, each climbing higher toward a small sanctuary that once crowned the summit. From below, the structure resembles a natural mountain shaped by human hands. Every level narrows. Every staircase points upward. The climb feels intentional, not simply physical, symbolic. A journey toward the heavens. In Khmer belief, Temple Mountains represented Mount Meru, the sacred center of the universe and the home of the gods. Phimionica's was built to reflect that cosmic vision, allowing the king to stand at the symbolic meeting point between the earthly kingdom below and the divine world above. Stone became belief. Architecture became mythology. The temple was more than a monument. It was a sacred landscape. Yet the greatest mystery surrounding Phimionica's does not come from archaeology. It comes from legend. A Chinese diplomat named Zhao Daguan, who visited Angkor during the 13th century, recorded a remarkable story told within the royal court. According to the tradition, a divine serpent spirit appeared each night in the form of a woman. The king was expected to meet her alone at the summit of the temple before joining his earthly queen. If he failed to appear, disaster would follow. The kingdom itself might fall. Whether the story reflected literal belief or royal symbolism remains uncertain. The legend has endured. The answer has not. Some historians believe the tale represented the sacred relationship between the Khmer king and the land itself, symbolizing divine approval for his rule. Others suggest it preserved older local beliefs that became woven into royal ceremonies over time. Perhaps the legend changed with every generation. Stories often do. The temple simply listened. Modern excavations have uncovered fragments of carvings, foundations, drainage systems, and architectural details revealing the extraordinary skill of Khmer builders, who constructed the pyramid using precisely fitted blocks of sandstone and laterite that have endured centuries of monsoon rains and tropical heat. Every stone remains carefully balanced. Every terrace still climbs toward the sky. The mountain continues to stand. Walking up the steep staircases today demands careful footing. The steps are narrow. The climb is demanding. With every level, the surrounding jungle slowly disappears beneath the horizon. At the summit, silence replaces the sounds below. The wind moves gently through the trees. It is easy to understand why ancient rulers believed this place felt closer to heaven than the city beneath it. Perhaps that is what makes Phimionica's so unforgettable. Not its size, not its decorations, but its setting. Hidden within a royal palace, built as a sacred mountain, wrapped in legends no excavation can fully explain. The temple still rises above the forest, still watches the passing centuries, still guards the story of the king and the mysterious spirit said to visit beneath the stars. Whether history or legend, the mountain keeps its secret. Patiently, quietly. More than 1,000 years have passed since Khmer rulers climbed these ancient steps. The wooden palaces have vanished. The royal court is gone. The empire became history. Yet the stone pyramid still reaches toward the clouds. Waiting, watching, enduring. A reminder that some of history's greatest mysteries are not hidden beneath the earth. Sometimes they stand in plain sight, high above the trees, still keeping their oldest stories to themselves. The forgotten royal city of Sirkap. In the valleys of northern Pakistan, where ancient trade routes once connected India, Persia, and Central Asia, the ruins of an abandoned city stretch quietly beneath the open sky. Its streets are perfectly straight. Its walls still define forgotten neighborhoods. Broken temples stand beside crumbling homes, and every stone reflects the meeting of civilizations that once shaped the ancient world. This was no ordinary city. It belonged to merchants, kings, pilgrims, philosophers, people from cultures separated by thousands of kilometers. Today, the city is known as Sirkap, a royal capital that history nearly left behind. Long before the city was built, the surrounding region of Taxila had already become one of Asia's greatest crossroads, where caravans carried silk, spices, precious stones, and ideas between East and West, transforming the valley into a place where many civilizations met. Persians arrived, Greeks followed, Scythians came later, then the Kushans. Each left something behind. The valley remembered them all. Sirkap itself was founded during the 2nd century BC after the campaigns of Alexander the Great reshaped much of the ancient world, eventually becoming the capital of the Indo-Greek rulers who governed this remarkable frontier between cultures. The city reflected their ambitions, carefully planned, carefully organized, built not by chance, but by design. Unlike many ancient settlements that grew gradually over centuries, Sirkap followed a remarkably ordered layout based on the Greek grid system, with wide streets crossing one another at right angles to create neatly organized city blocks. Everything had its place. Markets, homes, temples, public buildings. The plan feels surprisingly modern, even today. Walking through the ruins reveals something even more remarkable. Greek columns stand near Buddhist stupas. Hindu shrines appear beside local sanctuaries. Persian influences blend with Indian traditions. Architecture from distant worlds exists side by side, not competing, coexisting. The city became a meeting place of civilizations, built from many cultures, not one. One of Sirkap's most famous discoveries is the so-called double-headed eagle stupa. Its carved decorations combine artistic traditions rarely seen together, blending Hellenistic design with Buddhist symbolism in ways that continue to fascinate archaeologists. Where did the idea originate? Who designed it? No one knows for certain. The monument quietly reflects a world where cultures borrowed freely from one another. Researchers believe Sirkap prospered because of its location along the great trade networks that later became known as part of the Silk Road. Merchants passed through constantly. Goods changed hands. Languages mixed. Religions spread. Ideas traveled farther than armies. The city became wealthy, not through conquest, but through connection. Yet prosperity did not last forever. Several powerful earthquakes struck the region during antiquity. Political control shifted repeatedly. New rulers founded new capitals. Eventually, Sirkap was abandoned in favor of nearby cities. Its streets grew empty. Its markets fell silent. Wine replaced conversation. The royal city slowly disappeared beneath dust and time, patiently, without resistance. Modern excavations have uncovered defensive walls, residential districts, workshops, coins, sculptures, inscriptions, and countless everyday objects that continue helping historians reconstruct life inside one of the ancient world's most cosmopolitan cities. Every discovery adds another voice, another culture, another forgotten family. The city becomes more complete, yet many questions remain. Much still lies buried. Walking through Sirkap today feels strangely peaceful. The straight streets still guide your steps. Stone foundations mark vanished homes. Temple walls catch the afternoon light. Birds perch where merchants once negotiated. The city feels ordered, calm, almost waiting for its people to return. But they never will. Only the ruins remain. Perhaps that is Sirkap's greatest mystery. Not how it was built. History explains much of that. But how so many different civilizations lived, traded, worshipped, and built together within the same walls, creating a city unlike almost any other in the ancient world. Its kings are gone. Its merchants have vanished. Its temples stand in silence. Yet the streets remain exactly where ancient planners first imagined them more than 2,000 years ago. Still waiting. Still watching. Still reminding us that history is often richest where cultures meet rather than where they stand apart. And somewhere beneath the soil of Taxila, more of Sirkap's remarkable story may still be waiting for the next careful excavation to bring it back into the light. Stone harbor that connected 3 continents. On the sun-baked coast of the Red Sea, where Africa reaches toward Arabia and the sea opens the way to Asia, the ruins of an ancient harbor lie scattered beneath the sand. Broken columns, collapsed warehouses, weathered stone walls. The sea still reaches the shore, but the ships have long since vanished. For centuries, this forgotten port welcomed merchants from places separated by thousands of kilometers. Egypt, Rome, India, Arabia, perhaps even farther. Today, only silence remains. This is Adulis, a city that once connected 3 continents, and one whose greatest chapters are still buried beneath the earth. Long before modern maps divided nations, the Red Sea served as one of the busiest trade corridors in the ancient world, carrying ships filled with ivory, spices, incense, silk, precious stones, glassware, and exotic animals between Africa, the Mediterranean, Arabia, and the Indian Ocean. The sea never rested. Neither did the merchants. Every voyage brought new languages, new ideas, new cultures. Adulis stood at the center of it all. Archaeologists believe Adulis flourished for well over 1,000 years before becoming the principal port of the Kingdom of Aksum, one of the ancient world's most influential African civilizations. Its location was exceptional. Protected waters, easy access inland, direct routes across the Red Sea. The harbor became the kingdom's gateway to the wider world. Trade shaped everything. Ancient Greek and Roman writers described Adulis as one of the Red Sea's most important commercial ports. Merchant vessels arrived from Egypt carrying manufactured goods. Ships from Arabia crossed with incense and textiles. Indian traders brought spices and luxury products. African caravans reached the harbor with ivory, rhinoceros horn, tortoise shell, and gold. 3 continents met here, not through conquest, through commerce. Walking through the ruins today reveals foundations of warehouses, public buildings, broad streets, and stone structures that hint at the city's remarkable prosperity during its height. The buildings are modest now, broken, scattered. Yet their scale remains impressive. Every stone suggests movement, trade, constant activity. The harbor was once alive. One of the site's greatest mysteries is the harbor itself. Centuries of changing coastlines, shifting sediments, earthquakes, and natural erosion have altered the shoreline so dramatically that archaeologists continue debating exactly where the busiest ancient docks once stood. Some may now lie beneath the sea, others beneath layers of sand. The coastline has changed. History changed with it. Another remarkable discovery came from inscriptions and imported artifacts recovered throughout the site. Roman pottery, Greek inscriptions, Egyptian objects, South Arabian influences. Each discovery confirms what ancient writers described. Adulis was never isolated. It belonged to an international world connected by the sea. Long before globalization, the harbor welcomed the world. Researchers also believe Adulis played a vital role in the rise of the Kingdom of Axum, whose rulers controlled profitable trade routes stretching deep into eastern Africa while maintaining diplomatic and commercial relationships with Rome, Persia, and neighboring Arabian kingdoms. The city brought wealth inland. The kingdom grew stronger. The harbor became its heartbeat, quietly, reliably, for centuries. Yet prosperity proved fragile. Changing political powers, shifting maritime trade routes, regional conflicts, environmental changes. Together they slowly weakened the port. The ships came less often. Warehouses emptied. Markets fell silent. Eventually, the city was abandoned. The desert and the sea began reclaiming what people had built, patiently, without hurry. Modern archaeological expeditions continue uncovering houses, workshops, imported ceramics, coins, religious buildings, and administrative structures, revealing that much of ancient Adulis still lies hidden beneath layers of soil waiting for careful excavation. Every season uncovers something new. Another wall, another street, another forgotten story. The city has not revealed everything. Perhaps it never will. Standing along the shoreline today, it is difficult to imagine the noise that once filled this quiet coast. Sails approaching the harbor, merchants bargaining in many languages, workers unloading cargo, animals waiting beside the docks. Now only the waves remain, breaking gently against the shore. The sea remembers, even if the city does not. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of Adulis. Not how it became wealthy. The sea explains that. But how one of Africa's greatest ports could fade so completely from memory while leaving behind only fragments of the world it once connected. The harbor still faces the Red Sea. The ruins still wait beneath the sun. The wind still moves through broken walls. Watching. Waiting. Keeping the memory of a city that once linked 3 continents together. And reminding us that history's greatest crossroads are often the easiest to forget once the travelers stop coming. Hill-covered with thousands of burial mounds. In the heart of Sweden, where quiet fields roll beneath endless northern skies, 3 enormous grassy hills rise gently above the landscape. At first glance, they seem natural, simple, almost ordinary. But beneath the earth rests one of Scandinavia's greatest ancient mysteries. Not one grave, not a handful of burials, but thousands. Kings, warriors, families, generations whose names disappeared long ago. For more than 1,500 years, these silent mounds have watched kingdoms rise and fall. Today, this remarkable place is known as Gamla Uppsala, the ancient heart of Sweden, a landscape where legend and archaeology still walk side by side. Long before Stockholm became Sweden's capital, Gamla Uppsala stood as one of the most important political and religious centers in Scandinavia, attracting rulers, merchants, craftsmen, and pilgrims from across the northern world. Roads led here, trade flourished, ceremonies filled the seasons, power gathered on this hill. The landscape became sacred, long before history was written. The 3 great royal mounds dominate the site. Each rises several meters above the surrounding plain. Each required an astonishing amount of labor to construct. Thousands of tons of earth, stone, carefully shaped into monuments meant to last forever. They still stand, exactly where ancient builders left them, watching the centuries pass. Surrounding these famous mounds lie hundreds upon hundreds of smaller burial sites spread across the landscape. Some are barely visible today, Others remain clearly defined. Together, they form one of the largest ancient cemeteries in northern Europe. The dead were never isolated. They remained together, across generations. The hill became a city of memory. Archaeologists believe the largest mounds were built during the 6th century AD, during the turbulent migration period, when powerful regional rulers competed for influence across Scandinavia. The people who built them left no written records, only earth, fire, and extraordinary monuments. Their silence became history's challenge. Excavations inside 2 of the great mounds revealed remarkable discoveries: burned human remains, weapons, gold ornaments, glass vessels imported from distant lands, gaming pieces, decorated helmets, objects that reflected immense wealth and status. These were no ordinary burials. Someone important rested here, perhaps kings, perhaps legendary rulers remembered only in later stories. No one knows for certain. That uncertainty has inspired centuries of debate. Medieval Icelandic sagas claimed the mounds belonged to legendary kings of the Yngling dynasty, names passed down through poetry and oral tradition. Some historians see echoes of real rulers behind the legends. Others believe the stories grew larger with every generation. History and myth became intertwined, impossible to separate completely. The mounds remained silent. Gamla Uppsala was more than a cemetery. Historical accounts suggest it also served as one of Scandinavia's greatest religious centers before Christianity reached the region. Large ceremonies may have brought people together from distant settlements. Sacrifices, festivals, political gatherings. The landscape united power and belief. The hill watched them all. Modern archaeological surveys continue revealing traces of enormous wooden halls, ancient roads, ceremonial areas, workshops, and settlements surrounding the burial mounds, showing that Gamla Uppsala was once a thriving royal center rather than simply a place for the dead. The living and the dead shared this landscape, each shaping the other. Every discovery adds another layer, another forgotten voice. Walking among the mounds today feels strangely peaceful. The grass moves gently in the wind. Birdsong replaces the sounds of ancient ceremonies. Children play where kings may once have been honored. The earth reveals very little, yet it hides so much. Every hill keeps a story. Every stone remembers. Perhaps that is why Gamla Uppsala continues to fascinate archaeologists. Not because it answers history's questions, but because it preserves them. Who truly rested beneath these enormous mounds? How powerful was this forgotten kingdom? How much of the old legends still reflects real events? The landscape offers clues. Never certainty, only patience, only silence. More than 15 centuries have passed since the first great mound was raised above the Swedish plain. The kings are gone. The temples disappeared. The ceremonies faded into memory. Yet the hills remain, watching the changing seasons, watching new generations arrive, still guarding the stories buried beneath thousands of ancient graves, and reminding us that sometimes the greatest monuments are not built to be seen from afar. They are built to ensure that memory itself never completely disappears. Hidden Roman city beneath modern fields. Across the fertile plains of eastern Serbia, endless fields of wheat and corn stretch toward the horizon. Tractors move across the landscape. Farmers tend their crops. Life follows the seasons. At first glance, nothing seems unusual. But beneath these quiet fields rests an entire Roman city. A city with temples, palaces, bathhouses, an amphitheater, military headquarters, and thousands of forgotten graves. For centuries, it remained almost completely hidden beneath ordinary farmland, waiting, patiently, for history to return. Today, this remarkable place is known as Viminatium, one of the largest Roman cities ever built beyond Italy. Nearly 2,000 years ago, this peaceful countryside looked very different. Instead of farmland, wide stone streets crossed the landscape. Soldiers marched through fortified gates. Merchants filled busy markets. Ships sailed along the nearby Danube. Smoke drifted above workshops. The city never truly slept. Viminatium stood at one of the Roman Empire's most important frontiers, where Europe met the edge of empire. Founded during the 1st century AD, Viminatium quickly became both the capital of the Roman province of Moesia Superior and the permanent base of the 7th Claudia Legion, making it one of the empire's most important military and administrative centers along the Danube frontier. Power gathered here. Trade followed. The city flourished. Its influence reached far beyond its walls. Archaeologists estimate that at its height, Viminacium covered more than 400 hectares and supported tens of thousands of people, making it larger than many Roman cities that are far better known today. Its streets were carefully planned, its buildings monumental, its defenses formidable. This was not an isolated outpost. It was a thriving metropolis, built to endure. Modern excavations have uncovered an astonishing range of structures. Massive public baths, elegant villas, temples, workshops, wide paved roads, a military camp, even a vast amphitheater capable of holding thousands of spectators. Every excavation season reveals another neighborhood, another building, another forgotten chapter. The city seems almost endless. Perhaps the most remarkable discovery lies beneath the surrounding fields. More than 14,000 graves have already been uncovered within the city's cemeteries, containing beautifully preserved jewelry, weapons, pottery, coins, glass vessels, and personal belongings that reveal the remarkable diversity of people who once called Viminacium home: soldiers, children, merchants, officials. Entire lives preserved beneath the earth. One extraordinary discovery surprised archaeologists even further. The remains of mammoths were found close to the Roman city, including a remarkably preserved female mammoth named Vika. She lived hundreds of thousands of years before the Romans arrived. Two completely different worlds, separated by immense time, meeting beneath the same fields. History layered upon prehistory. Researchers continue debating just how large Viminacium truly became. Only a small portion of the ancient city has been excavated. Ground-penetrating radar and satellite surveys reveal countless buried buildings extending well beyond the visible ruins. Much of the city remains untouched, still hidden beneath farmland, still waiting beneath growing crops. The earth has protected more than it has revealed. The city's decline came gradually. During the 5th century, repeated invasions by Huns and other migrating peoples damaged the settlement. Power shifted elsewhere. Trade declined. Buildings fell into ruin. Eventually, nature reclaimed the streets. Fields replaced neighborhoods. The city disappeared, not beneath volcanic ash, not beneath sand, simply beneath the soil of everyday life, quietly, almost unnoticed. Today, Viminacium has become one of Europe's most advanced archaeological projects. Researchers use drones, laser scanning, geophysical imaging, and careful excavation to map buildings that remain completely invisible from the surface. The technology sees what human eyes cannot. Every scan uncovers another street, another wall, another forgotten district. The buried city continues to grow, without moving. Standing among the excavated ruins today feels strangely surreal. Beyond the ancient walls, modern farmland stretches in every direction. Tractors continue working nearby. Harvests continue as they always have. Yet only a few meters below the surface lies one of Rome's greatest forgotten cities. The past and present exist together, separated only by a thin layer of earth. Perhaps that is Viminacium's greatest mystery. Not how it became powerful. The Romans recorded much of that. But how a city that once governed an entire frontier could disappear so completely that ordinary fields eventually covered its streets. The walls still wait. The cemeteries still keep their stories. The buried city still watches beneath the Serbian countryside. Patiently, silently, reminding us that some of history's greatest capitals never truly vanished. They simply became part of the landscape. Sacred mountain filled with stone thrones. In the rugged highlands of central Türkiye, where wind moves endlessly across rocky hills and deep valleys, an ancient mountain rises above the surrounding landscape. From a distance, it appears untouched, a lonely plateau, covered with weathered stone. But climate slopes, and the mountain begins to reveal something extraordinary. Monumental rock-cut facades, ancient altars, stone thrones carved directly into the cliffs, entire chambers hidden within the rock itself. For more than 25 centuries, this sacred landscape has remained almost exactly where its builders left it, watching, waiting, keeping its oldest secrets. This is Midas City, the spiritual heart of ancient Phrygia, and one of Anatolia's greatest forgotten sanctuaries. Long before the Romans crossed these lands, the kingdom of Phrygia flourished across central Anatolia, becoming one of the region's most influential civilizations during the first millennium BC. Its rulers built fortresses, roads, shrines, and remarkable monuments carved into living stone. Among them all, Midas City became something special, not simply a settlement, a sacred mountain. Despite its name, there is no evidence that the legendary King Midas actually lived here. The name comes from ancient inscriptions mentioning Midas, leading later generations to associate the site with the famous ruler whose mythical touch supposedly turned everything into gold. History and legend became intertwined. The mountain quietly accepted both. It never corrected the story. Unlike many ancient cities built from brick or limestone, Midas City was shaped directly into volcanic rock. Builders carved staircases leading to high platforms. Hidden chambers disappeared into the cliffs. Large facades imitated the fronts of wooden temples. Nature became architecture. The mountain itself became sacred. Every carving respected the landscape around it. The site's most famous monument is the magnificent Midas Monument, sometimes called the Yazilikaya Monument, a towering rock-cut facade standing nearly 17 meters high and covered with intricate geometric patterns unlike almost anything else in the ancient Near East. No doorway opens behind it. No chamber lies within. Only a false entrance. Beautiful, mysterious, silent. Its true purpose remains uncertain. Scattered across the surrounding hills are dozens of stone seats and carved platforms that archaeologists often describe as ritual thrones. Some overlook sweeping valleys. Others face sacred monuments. A few stand completely alone on isolated ridges. Who sat upon them? Priests? Kings? Pilgrims? Perhaps no one sat there at all. Perhaps they belonged to the gods. The stone offers no answer. Researchers believe these thrones formed part of religious ceremonies honoring Cybele, the powerful mother goddess worshipped throughout Phrygia, whose sacred places were often established in mountains, cliffs, and dramatic natural landscapes. The mountain itself mattered, not only the carvings. Nature became part of worship. The earth became the temple. Another enduring mystery surrounds the countless niches, altars, stairways, and carved chambers spread across the site. Some appear ceremonial, others practical. Many remain impossible to interpret with certainty. Generations added new carvings. Old traditions blended with newer beliefs. The mountain slowly evolved, century after century, never standing completely still. Modern archaeological surveys continue revealing hidden tombs, defensive walls, reservoirs, and additional monuments scattered across the surrounding valleys, suggesting that Midas City was far larger and more complex than early explorers first imagined. Much remains buried. More remains unexplored. The mountain has not finished telling its story. Perhaps it never will. Walking through Midas City today feels unlike visiting an ordinary archaeological site. There are no crowded streets, no towering palaces, only open sky, weathered stone, the sound of wind moving across the plateau. The carved thrones still overlook the valleys exactly as they have for thousands of years, waiting, watching, almost expecting someone to return. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of Midas City. Not whether people worshipped here. They certainly did. But why this mountain became sacred above all others, and why so much effort was devoted to carving monuments into stone instead of building them upon it. The answers disappeared with the civilization that created them. The carvings remained, patiently, quietly, still facing the horizon. More than 2,500 years have passed since Phrygian pilgrims climbed these rocky slopes. The kingdom has vanished. Its language fell silent. Its kings became legend. Yet the sacred mountain still stands above the valleys of Anatolia. The stone thrones still wait. The ancient monuments still guard their silence. And somewhere among the cliffs, the mountain continues to remind us that the oldest temples were sometimes not built upon nature. They were carved into it, becoming part of the earth forever. Forgotten Palace of the Sea Kings. On the eastern coast of Cyprus, where the Mediterranean stretches toward 3 continents, the ruins of an ancient city lie quietly beneath the sun. Broken walls rise from the earth. Stone streets disappear into the distance. Collapsed workshops surround forgotten courtyards. The sea still sparkles nearby. But the rulers who once commanded these shores have long since vanished. For centuries, this city stood at the center of one of the ancient world's busiest maritime networks, a place where kings welcomed merchants from Egypt, Anatolia, the Levant, and the Aegean. Today, only fragments remain. This is Enkomi, a forgotten palace city of the late Bronze Age, and one whose silence continues to puzzle archaeologists. More than 3,000 years ago, Nkomi flourished beside a natural harbor that connected Cyprus with nearly every major civilization surrounding the eastern Mediterranean. Ships arrived constantly. Copper filled their cargo holds. Luxury goods crossed the sea. Ideas traveled alongside merchants. The city became wealthy, not through conquest, but through trade. The sea shaped everything. Archaeologists believe Nkomi reached its greatest prosperity between the 15th and 12th centuries BC, when Cyprus became one of the ancient world's most important sources of copper, a metal so valuable that entire kingdoms depended upon its steady supply. Copper built weapons, tools, statues, entire economies. Nkomi controlled much of that trade. Its influence reached far beyond the island. Unlike many Bronze Age settlements that expanded without planning, Nkomi was carefully organized. Wide streets crossed one another at right angles. Drainage channels ran beneath the roads. Large public buildings stood beside elegant homes. The layout reflected remarkable engineering. Everything appeared deliberate, ordered, designed for a growing city. At the heart of Nkomi stood an impressive administrative complex often described as a palace, where rulers likely directed trade, collected valuable goods, welcomed foreign merchants, and managed one of the Mediterranean's busiest commercial centers. It was the city's beating heart. Officials gathered here. Records were kept. Decisions shaped distant trade routes. The palace watched the harbor. The harbor sustained the palace. One of Nkomi's most remarkable discoveries is the famous bronze statue known as the Horned God. The figure stands confidently with a spear in one hand while wearing a helmet crowned by great horns. Powerful, elegant, mysterious. Whether the statue represents a king, a warrior, or a deity remains uncertain. The bronze refuses to explain itself. Nearby, archaeologists uncovered another extraordinary sculpture, the so-called ingot god, a bronze figure standing upon a copper ingot shaped like an ox hide. The image perfectly captured Nkomi's greatest source of wealth. Metal became symbol. Trade became identity. Few ancient cities left such a clear reminder of what made them prosperous. Researchers also discovered clay tablets inscribed with the still undeciphered Cypro-Minoan script. The symbols remain readable. Their meaning does not. No one has successfully translated the language. The city's own records survive, yet they remain silent, waiting for someone to understand them. Perhaps one day. Another mystery surrounds Nkomi's sudden decline. Around the 12th century BC, the eastern Mediterranean experienced a period of widespread upheaval. Kingdoms collapsed. Trade networks failed. Cities burned. Nkomi suffered repeated destruction before eventually being abandoned. Some scholars point to earthquakes, others to invading sea peoples. Still others believe economic collapse slowly weakened the city. Perhaps every explanation played a part. History rarely ends with one cause. Modern excavations continue uncovering workshops, temples, tombs, imported pottery, jewelry, seal stones, and remarkable evidence of international trade stretching from Egypt to Greece and beyond. Every discovery reveals another connection, another voyage, another forgotten partnership. The city still tells stories, even without words. Walking through Nkomi today, it is easy to imagine the sound of waves reaching the ancient harbor, merchants unloading cargo, metalworkers shaping, glowing copper, children running through the streets. The city feels unfinished, as though its people might return tomorrow, but they never will. Only the sea remains, still touching the same shore. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of Nkomi, not how it became rich. The copper explains that, but how one of the Mediterranean's greatest Bronze Age capitals could disappear while leaving behind a language no one can read and a history still waiting to be fully understood. The palace has fallen. The harbor has changed. The kings are forgotten, yet the stones remain, patiently, watching the sea that once carried their ships across the ancient world.